Hey guys, what's up? Today we are going to continue to watch Michelle Obama's speech, talking a lot about the values that she felt that her mother taught her, and I think it's a really beautiful tribute to give to her mother, although I don't like it in this setting. I do think it is being used to create emotion in those who are watching her. I feel like we have to dig underneath and say, why is she talking about her mother and those values?
For me, that mourning has also been mixed with my own personal grief. The last time I was here in my hometown was to memorialize my mother, the woman who showed me the meaning of hard work and humility and decency, the woman who set my moral compass high and showed me the power of my own voice. Folks, I still feel her loss so profoundly. I wasn't even sure if I'd be steady enough to stand before you tonight, but my heart compelled me to be here because of the sense of duty that I feel to honor her memory and to remind us all not to squander the sacrifices our elders made to give us a better future. You see, my mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
You can see when they were panning out to the audience that there are people who are nodding their head in agreement, like they're feeling something. Why would a speaker want to stir something emotional up? Because she's trying to get a vote, to try to invoke an emotion that people can buy into. People will suddenly start to vote emotionally. That is not a surprising tactic that would be used. Okay, so what do we know about the Democratic Party and about Kamala specifically, her policies? Ultimately, I think she intends to be the decision maker or the arbiter on what our values should be. I think she's trying to elicit your trust. That's why she's sharing this story. So the problem with that is, you know what? We don't all have the same values. Values are good, but they should not be forced by government. We don't all value the same thing. And when we put that kind of a decision in the government's hands, then only a few people or maybe one person gets to decide what the governing values are. And then we hand over our freedom. So what Michelle is trying to do is she's just trying to get us to believe that her and Kamala have the same values as we do, and that we should trust them with making the decisions about what our nation's values should be. And I don't know about you, but I don't want the government making value decisions for me. What I want from them is what the preamble to the Constitution gave them the right and the responsibility to do, which is that the government's role is limited to just a few small but extremely important things: to secure our borders from foreign threat and establish justice, to provide liberty and freedoms, and to provide peace and tranquility domestically. This video isn't about Tim Walz, but I would be amiss if I did not bring up Tim Walz, because it was in his state that Tim allowed riots to completely destroy businesses and people in his state. So, his record is not that good for this sort of thing. And Kamala, on the other hand, was in charge of our borders for the nation. So her record is not very good on that. So seriously, the government is in charge of like 4 things. And of the 4, half of them they're failing at. So these two are an utter failure when it comes to doing what the role and responsibility of our government is. Okay, so the next thing I have to bring up is the last thing that Michelle talked about, which is that her parents were suspicious of those who took more than they needed. So super interesting thing for Michelle to say, because she has an abundance. She's got somewhere around $80 million, but that's 7-year-old data, so it's probably double or triple that. The idea that the Democratic Party idealizes is that they're able to have a societal sharing of wealth. They take from one to give to another, to so-called balance the wealth. Well, I'd like to see if they're doing that in their personal lives, because I'm pretty sure that Michelle has an abundance, and I'd like to share Michelle. So go ahead and DM me here, and I'll be happy to share. We'll share on the wealth that's between the two of us, and I'm sure I'll come out way better. Okay, so first of all, I don't think they're living it themselves. I don't really think that they believe it themselves. But even if they do, here's the thing. Forced sharing from the government is really just stealing. It's taking from somebody else what they worked hard for and giving it to somebody else. So let's talk about what Harris's plan is. She wants to tax unrealized capital gains. I happen to know a little bit about that. I work as a tax accountant, so I happen to know exactly what she's talking about. What she's talking about is there's a particular thing called unrealized capital gains, meaning that the security was never sold. It's still owned by the person, and therefore they don't have the money. It's invested. It's not cash they can withdraw. They have to sell the security to get the money. But what she's talking about is taxing the gain that security has had over the lifetime of the person owning it. That's a huge problem. And by the way, I think my opinion is this would absolutely bankrupt the middle class. She talks about this helping the middle class. No, not even close. I can tell you personally, it would devastate my finances. The wealthy would probably be okay, although it would absolutely destroy their finances too. But they would probably turn out okay because they've got so much. The middle class would incredibly suffer from this tax change that she's recommending. They're barely making it anyway. They're trying to get ahead, and this would set them so far behind. What would happen is they would be forced to sell to be able to pay the taxes for it. It would utterly destroy people's motivation to save for the future. It would be such a deterrence, people would stop using it. And then what would happen? Well, the stock market might start collapsing because that's where all the money is. It's all invested in public companies. So our stock market would decline. We'd see a lot of selling, and a lot of valuations of companies would come down. Now let's talk about the stealing part. What she plans to do with this is to again, take this money from those who so-called are rich. All right, whether they are or not, doesn't really matter to me, but take this money from them and to give it to people who have children and who are buying a first-time home. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure why Kamala thinks that it is okay to take somebody else's money to give to someone who wants to buy their first home. Like, that's just seriously unbelievable to me. That makes no sense at all. I think that detracts from the whole point of it. That's just forcing people to do good. Why don't we just allow people to be generous of their own free will? Oh wait, it happens, like all the time, everywhere. I myself have been a part of organizations, and I've seen the inside workings of several charitable organizations who help because they want to. They're not forced to. There are people who do good because they want to, and it's everywhere. And the great part about that is that the money from the donor goes straight to the recipient, and there's nobody in between milking money off the top. It's all done by volunteer work. I happen to know this because I've done this. I've been a part of several organizations who volunteer their time, their resources, and anything that they have to help the less fortunate. So, in addition to that, I happen to know that there are very, 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 very wealthy people who donate, items or money to the less fortunate. I happen to know this because of my career. People are already doing good. They don't need to be forced to do good. And in juxtaposition, what Michelle and Kamala are referring to is government-forced charitable work. Now, I've also seen the inside workings of the government, and let me tell you, they are the worst money managers. It's called red tape for a reason. And guess what? Government workers get paid. That money they steal from those who have too much goes through an extensive and expensive system that can hardly be called efficient or effective. So what once was $1 might now be like 20 cents to the recipient. So I say, no, Michelle. No, Kamala. I reject your communist proposal to more government overreach. I reject your proposal for more taxation, to take from one person to give to another. And instead, I choose to believe in the humanity of our citizens and the good that they do because they just want to.